fellow heathens. In one of my last videos, I talked about how much I love tarot and the fact that I have been building quite a collection over the past year, especially that I'm deciding that I may have too many decks and I have developed a little bit of a tarot addiction. So in the spirit of reassessing my collection and taking a better look at what I really actually need and want to continue to maintain in my collection and what I can let go of, I'm developing a series that will kind of classify my collection into different categories that will help me better understand how these decks actually make me feel. And in that way, I'll be able to sense the energy of the deck that's right for me, the decks that I continuously reach for, and the ones that, you know, that are still new to my collection, and the ones that will be leaving my collection. So there will be 4 segments. The first segment will be in 2 parts, and that will be called Decks I Can't Live Without. And these are the decks that just have given me some of the best readings that are healing in some way, that really tap into different energies that I continuously reach for. So these are the decks that, if God forbid there was a fire, I would pay an obscene amount of money to reconnect with and somehow manage to get back into my collection. And then segment 2 will be decks I really like. So these are the decks that I pull out for, you know, a variety of different occasions, but they don't come out as often as the decks I can't live without. They have specific purposes for me in my collection, and as I'm going through that, I will be reassessing how they actually make me feel. And part 3 will be decks I'm getting to know. So this will include decks that are new to my collection, decks that I really haven't had a chance really to, you know, kind of sit with, and I've basically gotten them into my collection, maybe done a reading, looked through the images, and then kind of put them away because I was working with something else. And then the last part will be decks that I'm rehoming. And I already have a few decks that I've set aside that I know will be leaving my collection because they will include decks that I hardly ever reach for, that I don't think will serve a purpose for me going forward, or that I've exhausted all of the use that deck has given me for this point in my life, or perhaps I have a second copy of one that I don't need to keep, you know, in my collection because I don't want to have multiple copies of the same thing unless it's one of the decks that I can't live without. So with that in mind, we'll get started with Decks I Can't Live Without, part 1. Let's get started with my first deck, the beautiful Rebellion Tarot. This is the deck, one of my first indie deck purchases, and it has given me some of the most profound readings. And I was thinking about making a video talking about that reading especially, and how it just completely floored me. And it came from this deck, and specifically from the guidebook that I had printed, the beautiful Rebellion guidebook. So it's quite large, you know, it's ring bound, and the majors are in color, but the rest of it is in black and white because then it would have cost me a fortune to print. So let's take a look. Now this deck is currently out of print, but I do know that Robin Cole is looking to make another edition of this deck. So let me go ahead and zoom in and we'll take a look. A lot of people, let me take a second and address that in the original painting, there's a skull in this corner here, right by the book. So when I was looking at this particular image online, I'm like, that's a little bit different. Here's the backs. And a lot of people found the font to be a little bit jarring. I actually really like it, and it was one of the things that drew me to the deck when I was looking at pictures online. She originally wanted to make this a completely Waterhouse deck, but was finding it difficult to find images that portrayed what she saw within the card. So she expanded her art selection base and pulled in other artists. It's just a beautiful deck, and I am very curious to see what the second edition is going to look like. There are a few images that are a little bit pixelated, and I gotta admit, they do bother me a little bit, but I wouldn't ever think of getting rid of this one, because this deck and I have really gotten to the heart of the matter on several occasions. I love the cardstock. It's a linen finish. I don't know if you can see that. It shuffles beautifully, and it's just gorgeous artwork. So let me see if I can get to one of the images that, maybe it's in the back. No. Oh, and it's all female centric. I love this moon card. It's one of my favorites. Okay, so here it is, the Three of Pentacles. It's quite blurry, and it's like it's been zoomed in quite a bit, and you really can't make out the facial expressions. Let me see if I can find one more. Okay, here's another one. It's a little bit zoomed in too far. You know, it would have been okay if it was a little bit more, like if he didn't take up as much space within the artwork. And this one, her nose is a little bit cut off, but I just love the imagery with the stars. So this one, I have nothing bad to say about the deck itself. There are a few minor quibbles, but I have bonded with this deck, and it's going to stay in my collection. The next deck is the Tarot di Marsiglia Hess from 1750. Johann Hess, I believe, is his name. Now, this deck I don't actually do readings with. I strictly pull it out when I'm feeling like kind of depressed, and I'll show you why. It comes in this hard box. It wasn't a cheap deck. This is an art history reproduction deck, and it comes with an incredible guidebook, Tarot in German Countries by Giordano Berti. So, and it comes with, you know, a note and just some extra. Here's a card of authentication. The reason why I love this deck so much is because of the faces. Everyone is smiling. So you have the sun, lots and lots of minors. Here's Justice. Here's the Devil. Like, look. And the reason why I love it so much is that this was created in 1750. Obviously, this is a reproduction, but the artist found it to be of value to show everyone smiling. So I think of these people as kind of an extension of the creator. And if people can smile in 1750, then why can't I? And that's literally all it is. That's what it comes down to. All right, this is making me mad. Too many darn minors. So here's the La Papesse, the star. They're all going to be at the end. Here's the Cavalier de Denier, the Knight of Pentacles. I want to show you the Death card. Even the Hanged Man looks happy. Here he is. Yay, I found him. Look at his face. Like, he's just la la la, sweeping the dead bodies away, bringing about their transition, their enlightenment. I just love it. I love this deck. I love the art paper that it's printed on. It's got a semi-gloss finish. It's flexible, but it's got this like light, airy touch, and it's just a pleasure to handle and a pleasure to look at. I love the, you know, the water damage that has occurred over the years. It just gives this antique, realistic feel to the entire deck, and I love it so much. So that is the 1750 Hess Marseille. Next is the Tarot of Transformation. Now, as you can see, I have 3 copies, and I'll explain why. So I believe it's this one. My dog, Rambo, got to it. We went out, we kept him out of his kennel, and he, for whatever reason, I mean, you can kind of tell it's like get jacked up. I mean, can you see that? For whatever reason, he found that he wanted to take my deck, which was in this velvet pouch, and chomp on it. And it just got like messed up to the point where I didn't feel like, I definitely wanted to get my hands on another deck. So I was sent another copy, but the top of it, the keywords or the key phrases had this like blue line across. So what I did with that copy was I cut off the keywords and I rounded the corners and I edged it. And it turned out really, really beautiful. So I find this deck to be so incredibly powerful, so incredibly healing. It's more of a nightly pull for me as a cap on what I should be thinking about, and we'll go through a few of the cards. It's still available from what I can tell, and I highly recommend it. Here's the guidebook. And you know, you just read that section, and it really gets you thinking about like where you are in your life and what you want to accomplish. So I do really enjoy the keywords. Here are the backs. I do really enjoy the keywords because this deck does not follow the RWS. So it's kind of important to me to kind of get that initial hit of what the card means and then kind of dive into the artwork. This one I get a lot, the 10 of Swords, leaving the story. Look how beautiful that is. It's like when you have cyclical patterns of behavior and patterns of thought that don't serve you, it's like you take a couple steps forward and then you go back, and you make progress, and then you know, make another mistake. And eventually you find your way out of this chasm and into the light. So that's exactly what these birds are doing. So I mean, it's so symbolic, it's just stunning. Separation from source, the devil. And I think I was talking about in another video about how I define myself as a heathen and what could possibly hell be like, and that's definitely what this is, separation from source. So to be in the clutches of the devil is to be further away from God. And that's my personal take on it. Joyous flow, attending to emotional needs of others and oneself. And the artwork is just so flowing, so feminine. And some of the images are a little bit smaller, so when I was trimming that last deck I showed you, I had to be very careful of a few of these cards, and the death card was one of them. So the Fool, innocence or ignorance. So it definitely gives you both the positive and the negative, the shadow and the light. The Magician is the master of conscious creation. So I highly recommend this deck. Now the card stock, on the other hand, is another matter entirely. You know, here's another card that had the different image shown. I did talk to the creator, and you know, was talking about possibly if she ever decided she would one day want to do a Kickstarter and, you know, reprint this deck on better cardstock. You know, there's definitely a demand for it, and I think she did not want anything to do with that idea. So, which is fine, you know. Just wanted to one day hope that, you know, I could get it on cardstock that won't deteriorate as fast, because this is like brand new, you know. But it's okay. And that's the thing, you know, we have our preferences for cardstock, but if you love the artwork, you're willing to deal with pretty much anything. So that is the Tarot of Transformation. The Lonely Dreamer Tarot. This tarot I did not back on Kickstarter, but was able to get a copy of at a reasonable price after the Kickstarter was over, before the second edition came out, and it totally blew me away. It's in this lovely rose petal finish box, beautiful inside. So I have a lot of decks to show you. Here are the backs. So I'm gonna have to pick this up. This is another one that, and I have this in order because I recently did a walkthrough comparing the first and second edition. Now, I do have the second edition, and I'm not, let's zoom in a smidge. I like this one better. So I'm still debating whether or not to keep that second one or not. I'm not sure that I would use it if I have this. So I guess it would be a good thing to have in case I ever damage this one, or, you know, God forbid Rambo got to it. But the artwork is so dreamy, and it gives me all the feels. And it's just beautiful to behold. And that is the Lonely Dreamer Tarot. Next up is my shadow deck workhorse, the Dark Grimoire. I had this bag made, and it's basically the backs, and there it is. I'm sure many of you have seen this. This isn't everyone's cup of tea, but it, my goodness, let me just show you. I have the Emerging from Darkness guidebook, Using Tarot for Personal Shadow Work, and this is the deck I use for it. And it's just incredible. Let's zoom in. Now, of course, I would wish it were borderless and it didn't have all of these languages, but I'm okay with it. Oh, yes, this is the reason why this is backwards, is because this is the shadow that I'm working with right now. So let me flip that over. Now, right now, I don't have any of the majors in here because the shadows that I was working with can be picked from the majors, but doing the actual work of excavating the shadows is in the minors, which I found incredibly intriguing through the Emerging from Darkness workbook. Now, another reason why I love this deck is that all of the aces are books, and I have a particular interest in books and writing, and it has been a shadow for me for a few years, so I really found that to be helpful. It's just so powerful. Like, a lot of people don't like the ghouls, but there's so much symbolism in here that you can make what you will. Like, this doesn't have to be a devil. This can be a shadow. Is it this guy's shadow, or is it an external shadow? You know, does he have issues with perfectionism? Does he feel like there's an external force forcing him to continue to create? What if he doesn't please this person or thing? It's just amazing, and I love it. Like the Seven of Chalices is about illusion. This guy's just chilling out. And what's going on here? Like a castle in the sky. But is he really seeing that? Is he avoiding it on purpose? Is it to his benefit or detriment? You know, what's in the book and this person's eyes? Why is she denying the knowledge, the information, the Eight of Chalices? So she's moving away. Is this a good thing or a bad thing? You know, there's water behind this person, which could indicate purity, but it could also indicate too much emotion. So yeah, and like this guy is like stomping his house. It could indicate the Ten of Swords, like something is destroying his home life. You know, what is this? Is this the burden on his back that's causing him to cause mayhem within his own home? It's just great. Love it. So that's the Dark Grimoire for my shadow work. Next up is the Pagan Otherworlds. So here's the box. Decent quality tuck box. I left the seal on and I open it from the bottom. The artwork, of course, is beautiful, and we all know that, but it's the guidebook that just blows me away. So I'm going to show you a little bit of this, and I'm sure you've seen this before. Some of these are, nope, it's not upside down. Okay. The cardstock is fantastic. It's got a nice slide to it. But it offers this like open reading. Let me just zoom in a smidge. And the palette, the color palette is just so neutral that it lets the message shine. And it lets your feelings and your intuition speak clearly. And I love that. You know, sometimes with some RWS decks, it's just the image and that's it. And then it's like you're kind of stuck in that meaning. And the guidebook does such a fantastic job of describing the details of what's going on. So let's see if I can find one card and read a smidge of it to you. Here's the Moon card, and I'm not going to read the whole page because I want to be quick about this, but I'll just read a couple sentences. Witnesses to that moment are our oldest allies, the dog and the wolf, the domesticated or conscious side of our nature and the wild or unconscious side. They will follow us forever, howling for our attention, one in sunlight, the other by the light of the moon, each in search of a master. So it really talks about the duality of our nature as human beings and which dog, which element of ourselves are we going to show attention to, which ones are we going to feed. So I love that about this deck. And that's the Pagan Otherworlds. And get the guidebook. Next up is the Guardian Tarot. And I know a lot of you may have already seen this deck but may not be interested in it because it doesn't really depict a lot of the meanings that you were used to. So I want to show you what I did. Now I do want to do a side-by-side with the original deck before my modifications. Let's put this here. Here are the backs. I went through and sorted it according to how I saw the images and how I read the cards. And I made these, let's see if you can see it, these little labels, and it fits it better, in my opinion. And the reason why I like this deck, I use it for springtime. I actually just started it this week and pairing it with the Soul Trees Oracle. So the Four of Pentacles to me is about grounding into your resources and like look at the and see, I don't even remember if that's what this was originally or not, but he's grounding the roots into this body of land or this rock. the Hierophant, passing on knowledge, the Knight of Cups with the flowers, giving you flowers. So a lot of people find them to be creepy. The Four of Swords is about rest. So he's moving on this path and he's alone and he's taking a mental break from all of the stuff going on just beyond the card's edge and talking to a bird. So the Two of Pentacles is about balance. Which way are you going to go? Six of Cups, nostalgia. Looking into the past, what once was. They look, yes, I mean, they're looking at you. They are asking you. They are beings that are asking you to look within yourself. So a lot of people find that to be creepy, but I find it to be very intimate, a very intimate experience. And I just love it. So that is the Guardian Tarot by Beth Salonen. I'm realizing that this video is getting a little bit too long, and I'm only going to talk about 2 more decks, or actually 3, but one's a companion oracle. And then I will do part 1 and part 2 of Tarot Decks I Can't Live Without. So let's get to this one. I recently acquired the gold edition of the Children of Litha Tarot. This one was another one that I absolutely love. This is the black edition. Now, as you can tell, I'm probably going to do a side-by-side comparison of these two, but they are different in multiple ways. This one, I'm not sure if I'm going to keep both or if I'm going to, get rid of one, but I'm not sure which one I like better. So let's zoom in a little bit here. These 2 cards happen to be on top because I was comparing coloration. And I want to say that the coloration on the gold edition is a little bit crisper. This one is a little bit more, I don't want to say fuzzy, but the contrast is a little less obvious. And the blacks are a lot clearer and darker and deeper in the gold edition. The black edition is a rose petal finish with black edges, and the gold edition is a matte finish with gold edges. So it's quite different in multiple ways, and the gold edition has 2 extra cards. So I love this deck because it doesn't shy away from the harsh realities of these cards, of the meanings of these cards. And I'm not opposed to seeing a little blood every now and again. It's depicted so beautifully, and it has this exotic feel. Look at that sun. The all, and this is everything encompassed in one. And that's not present. That's one of the extra cards that's not present in the black edition. Now, as far as how these decks make me feel, sometimes it's hard to distinguish between, wow, I really love this artwork, and wow, this deck makes me feel something that I don't want to not have in my life anymore. And I think it's just the raw nature with which these cards are depicted. And the author's name is Alexandria. What's her name? Huntington. Alexandria Huntington. Now she does have the elements in here. So pentacles are like a wintry scene. And that's a little bit strange for me. But I'm okay with that. It's just so well executed. And I think this devil is one of the main reasons why I love this deck so much. Like, they're just like having a grand old time, drinking their wine, and they don't even know that they're chained. You know, they have the riches, but they can't go anywhere and they can't do anything beyond their limitation. So this was one of the ones that for a long time I considered my soul deck. And I figured, well, not that I figured, but I realized that for me, a soul deck is a myth. And the reason for that is that these images were created by someone else. So how could it be our soul deck when it's from the soul of another? And that does sound sad, but we bring these decks into our lives and they can represent pieces of our soul, different pieces, because we can't be encapsulated by one art form because we're too intricate of people. There's too many different facets to who we are as human beings to be contained by one type of art. So that is the Children of Litha Tarot. Now, I know I mentioned that the last decks would be a companion oracle, and I'm not going to give it away, but I'm changing my mind because I want this to definitely be part of part one. It is the Touchstone Tarot by Cat Black, the Kunadi edition, and the Majestic Earth Tarot by J.D. Hildegard Hinkle. And these two I paired together, and I have done a #perfect pairs video, and these were two that I paired together. I love both of these decks, but there's something about the Touchstone Tarot that for me hits this place of, like, similar to the Guardian Tarot, the images are looking at you and they're beckoning you to change and to do something different. And I love these two together. The Majestic Earth, any type of landscape tarot, just puts me in this place of awe, right? So one of my favorite things to do is to drive in my car. Here are the backs. Don't they look nice together? And the cardstock is very similar, and they're both gold gilt edges, so how about that? My Majestic Earth Tarot has developed a little bit of a bow, so let's ignore that. One of my favorite things to do is to drive and just kind of like drive through the country, drive anywhere that's scenic, and just look out the window and just look and be in awe of God's creation. And that's what the Majestic Earth Tarot does for me. So pairing these two together, like, look, she's looking at you or me, and it's just beautiful. And I love historical art decks. Like, look at this 10 of Clouds and just the stark contrast in color is just so stunning. And there's so much history embedded in these images. Look at the coloration, look at the purples and the greens and all of the beautiful wildflowers growing. It definitely gives me the feels. So yes, this is, and they're both out of print, but the Touchstone Tarot is now US Games reproduction. It doesn't quite look like this, and it's on different cardstock and it has a different backing, but it's so timeless and classic, and I don't think I would ever get sick of it. I think it would always call me to make the right choice, and it would always send me a message because I've developed that bond with it. And I used these two together for like almost 2 months straight. I did not want to use anything else because the messages were so clear. And I think that's what constitutes a deck I can't live without. Yes, it's the artwork. Yes, it's the feels that it gives me when I look through the artwork. But how does it read? So that's another thing. All of these decks read for me phenomenally. There's no question about what it is I need to do. And some, you know, there are other decks I'm building a relationship with that can get a little muddled, and I kind of have to dig a little deeper, but not so with these. And there's like different keywords, so this kind of acts like my oracle. So yes, it's got the tarot card, but it's got keywords. Like, look at the beauty in her eyes. Look at how probing her eyes are. Look at the darkness, the depth behind her. And this guy, he's like, wouldn't you like some of my gold? Nope, this is for me and my kin. Well, I think I jumped a few centuries there. So anyway, this is the Touchstone Tarot and the Majestic Earth Tarot. And this will be the last pairing or last decks that I'll show for part 1. So thank you for joining me for part 1 of Tarot Decks I Can't Live Without. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope to see you soon. Bye. As always, thanks for watching, and if you found value in this video, please hit the like button and subscribe for more tarot-related content like this. Ring that bell to be notified whenever I upload new stuff, and don't forget to listen closely to the whispers of the heathen within that already has the answer and knows the path that's right for you. Until next time, be brave, be bold, be you. Bye.